Hi, this is David at Mash IT. Now, since receiving the new Alienware X17, we've had many requests to compare it to Alienware's previous flagship 17-inch, the M17 R4. Now, in order to compare these laptops fairly, we've tried to get two very similar specs. The M17 R4 has a 10th gen i7 8-core CPU, 144Hz 1080p panel, an RTX 3070, 16GB of RAM and 512GB SSD. And our X17 had the 11th gen 11800H, 165Hz 1080p panel, RTX 3070, 16GB of RAM and 512GB SSD. So as you can see, these are very similar machines. Now, we've reviewed both these machines previously, so I will put a link below for both the original reviews in case you missed them. To begin, we're going to look at the exterior of these machines. Now, looks are subjective, and I love the look of both of these machines. They both have the iconic Epic design, so you can see straight away it's an Alienware. With regards to the colour choices, the M17 R4 comes in either Lunar Light, which I have here, and also the Dark Side of the Moon. The new Alienware X17 only has one colour scheme available, and that is Lunar Light on the outside and Dark Side of the Moon on the inner. Both models have the RGB keyboard, the Alienware power button, the rear alien head, and the Tron ring. The biggest difference here between these two models is Dell has vastly improved the Tron ring on this new model, making it look much more vibrant and having better colour and effects options. Build quality of both these laptops is fantastic, with each feeling incredibly solid. The size and the weight also feels incredibly similar, with the new Alienware X17 being very slightly slimmer but also marginally longer. Both laptops have a good port selection, but the way the ports are laid out is very different. The new X17 has all the ports at the back except the power port on the side, whereas the M17 has most of the useful ports on the side except the power plug and the display outputs on the back. In day-to-day use, the M17 wins here, as it is much easier plugging in and out your mice, your memory cards and peripherals, whereas the X17 you need to lean over the laptop and fumble around to plug in the devices, and you always have the thick power cable out the side of the machine. That said, if you have a lot of peripherals plugged into your machine, the X17 will look far less messy. Talking of power connectors, the new X17 3060 and 3070 model gets the redesigned 240W PSU, which is much smaller and lighter than the older 240W PSU. The good news is though, they are cross-compatible, so if you have an older M15 or M17 and don't like the size of your power pack, you can buy one of the new style PSUs. Both these laptops have firm opening lids with very little wobble, making them feel very sturdy, and that's a good thing on these premium flagship devices. Taking a look at the touchpad, the M17 R4 touchpad is much bigger than the new Alienware X17's touchpad. Now this is a real shame. You would think that on the newer model they would have kept this the same size, but either way both touchpads are great and they both track nicely and the gestures respond well. Then moving up to the keyboard, although both feel the same, the new layout is a massive step backwards in my opinion. On a 17-inch, a lot of people would like a number pad, which the X17 lacks, but to me this isn't even the biggest problem. It's the new media keys and cursor key locations, which make typing more difficult. I will often mistype when trying to use the right shift key and accidentally hit the up arrow. I will hit the media keys instead of the enter key as there's no separation from the main keyboard. Now both laptops have down and forward firing speakers. So we're just going to quickly test the speakers on the X17 and the M17 R4. Yeah, they're at 40% volume and I can put this microphone right in the middle so you can hear them both. %60. So they're both great speakers. I would think the M17 R4 sounds actually slightly better than the newer X17, which is a bit of a shame. They've both got downward firing and forward firing speakers, but this one just sounds a little bit better. But if they weren't side by side, I think you'd be happy with either of them. Moving up to the screen, both models have a 1080p or a 4K options available. The M17 here has the 144Hz panel with G-Sync, whereas the X17 that we've got has the 165Hz panel with Optimus. This is another step back for the X17 here, as there is no mux switch, so unless you plug into an external monitor, you're routing all your signal through the Intel graphics, leading to slightly lower performance in some games. On the plus side, all versions of the X17 have Windows Hello, and this is brilliant and my favourite way to log into a Windows machine. On the M17 R4, only the most expensive panel options have this available. This is a webcam and mic test for the Alienware X17 gaming laptop. And this is the webcam and the microphones on the M17 R4. With regards to the CPU performance, the X17 takes the lead here with the new 11th gen processors. These give quite a boost in performance in both single and multi-core, and this alone could be a good reason to pick up the X17 over the M17's 10th gen 8-core CPU. Both laptops allow their respective CPUs to run flat out without throttling, which is good, but the extra 25% CPU performance of the X17 will give you higher frame rates in CPU-bound games. Moving on to the GPUs, both these models have an RTX 3070 with 140W TGP. You can also configure this with a 3060 or a 3080, which also have the maximum performance TGP of 130 watts and 165 watts respectively. Unless you're running on a dedicated monitor, the M17 R4 will get slightly better GPU scores because it doesn't use the Optimus, but overall the X17 will perform as well or better in most games owing to the better CPU performance. Looking at fan noise, both these laptops can get quite loud under load, but the X17's 4 fan system has less whine and more of a whoosh. Both laptops will spill up to about 50 decibels in balance mode and up to 54 decibels in their max fan mode. And lastly, the keyboards remain cooler on the X17, leading to a more comfortable gaming experience. Now with regards to the internals, you can see a massive change between these two models, with the M17 R4 having the traditional 2 fans at the rear, with most of the heat being pumped out of the back of the machine. On the X17 we have 4 fans, and the heat is pushed out the left and the right side and also out the rear. Another plus of the X17 is the 2 RAM slots, allowing you to upgrade the memory yourself, and one of the 2 SSD slots is a Gen 4. On the M17 R4, the RAM is soldered and the SSDs are limited to Gen 3, but you have 3 M.2 slots available, although one is a 30mm slot. Now battery life is also a win for the X17, getting 5 hours streaming YouTube over Wi-Fi at 50% brightness and 50% speaker volume. The M17 R4 on the other hand, with no Optimus, scored a measly 2 hours 40 minutes in the same test, meaning you'll be plugging in this laptop most of the time. So having looked at both of these laptops together, which should you choose? This for me has been a tougher choice than I expected. New is going to be better, right? Well, the M17 still has a fair few wins over the X17. The better keyboard, trackpad and port locations and the speakers give the laptop a more premium feel and provide for a better experience in day-to-day use or work, whereas the X17 has better CPU performance, temperatures and overall gamer performance, making this quite a tough choice. I guess the deciding factor could also be the price, with Dell often discounting the older M17 R4, making it a better choice for people voting with their wallets. So what do you think of these two? Which do you reckon is the better buy? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you for watching.
Taking a moment to return your machines.
A soldier's fortune